All right, with that, let's jump into liability today. Page number 3, Roman numeral 4, letter A. The first thing we're going to talk about is, all right, who's responsible? Okay, in order to do that, we have to determine which bucket it falls into. If it's an authorized transaction, we're not going to talk about the dispute process because the consumer authorized it. It's not unauthorized. It's not something we're disputing. Now, if they authorize the transaction and they're disputing the dollar amount, well, then it fits again. Okay, so are we talking about an unauthorized or an authorized transaction? Okay, to do that, we need to go a little deeper. So what's it mean by definition, page 3, number 1, to be unauthorized? So not initiated by the consumer. We have to be able to check that box. Next box, no benefit to the consumer. Those things I think are pretty straightforward. If I'm your customer, if I didn't initiate it, okay, and I didn't benefit from it, that's an unauthorized transfer. It's going to be covered by these requirements. Now, we got to unpack this a little bit further here because one of the things that has happened in the last couple of years, the CFPB has tried to, I don't know that overstep is the word, but they're riding a fine line with the narrative they're trying to get out there versus what the regulation, where the regulation stops and starts. Okay, because the regulation stops short of where the CFPB would really like us all to be. And so they tried to put out this narrative that maybe Reggie should go a little farther than it otherwise does. And what I want to do is, again, dispel that myth, that misconception today, and ensure that you're not providing money when maybe you don't have to. Okay, now, if you want to overstep, that's certainly fine, and provide money in situations where you're not required, that's okay. But the regulation has not changed. Not to say that it won't in the future, but to this date, it hasn't yet. So let's do this. Okay, there's a couple examples underneath letter B, and you can read through them on your own here, but let me give you kind of the short of it here. Okay, if we're talking about fraud, not your customer, that's going to be on the next page. If your customer is trying to pull one over on you, that's a whole different deal. Okay, this would be fraud against your consumer customer. So it works like this. If I'm the consumer customer and somebody has stolen my access device, maybe it's the piece of plastic, or maybe it's the information associated with the piece of plastic. Okay, but they've stolen the access device and they run off and do something with it. And then I notice it and say, hey, not mine. That's an unauthorized transfer. Okay, if somebody steals my account credentials, put the access device aside for a moment, okay, just my account information with you. And they steal account information such that they can create an ACH transaction, okay, or some other electronic funds transfer. Okay, I'm not authorizing it. Somebody's stolen my information and gone and conducted transactions with it, whether it be a stolen access device, information associated with the access device, or just account information to conduct electronic transfers. Those are unauthorized transfers. Okay, those, if somebody brings them to you, you have to work them. You have to provide the investigation and then make the customer whole again. So again, stolen access device, stolen account information to conduct unauthorized transfers. However, where there's a line in the sand, okay, if your customer conducts an electronic transaction, now let me go a little further. If they're the ones that are hitting the pay now button, if there's the ones that are hitting the send button, okay, on their phone, their mobile device, whatever, we'll get into mobile apps here in just a moment. But if you go through and read those examples very closely, don't do it right now, but it talks about induced fraud. But again, where Reggie stops, okay, is where you get to stop. So we go back to the definition of unauthorized. If it was initiated by the customer, even if it ends up being fraud, it's not an unauthorized transfer. Why? Because it was initiated by the customer. So if fake Amazon calls me up, okay, and somehow they get me to send them money, and I call you and say, oh, I've been taken. Somebody called and committed fraud against me and I sent them money. That's the key to the scenario right there. I sent them money. I hit the pay now. I hit the send button. That's an unauthorized transaction. Okay. Your reply can be said, Jerod, I'm sorry, but you authorized the transaction. It's not covered by Reg E. There's no Reg E protections here. And that's how Reg E works. Now, I'm going to change it up just a little different. Okay. So if somebody has called me up, so let's say fake Amazon calls me, and I don't conduct a transaction, I don't send them money, but somehow they're able to get me to provide them my account credentials. or my card information, and they take my card information or my account information, and then that person who was fake Amazon who got me to give them the information, if they then go and conduct subsequent transactions using the stolen information, those are unauthorized transactions because they stole my information and then they went and conducted the transactions. I didn't conduct them. I didn't initiate them. But again, the difference is if I hit the pay now, hit the send button, okay, and send them the money, then those are authorized transactions. So you really have to work to get the details out of the customer, okay, when they call and say, hey, this isn't mine, I'm a victim of fraud. Well, did you in fact authorize the transaction, or did somebody steal your account or card or access device related information and then they went and conducted the transaction? Because then those are unauthorized. Okay, those you would have to cover.